Milo the bunny wore his favorite blue overalls with a patch shaped like a strawberry. His ears perked up as he hopped across the grassy path that led to Grandma Bunny's house at the edge of Clover Hill. He could already smell something sweet floating in the air. As he reached the little white cottage with green shutters, the scent grew stronger, fruity and warm, like sunshine in a jar. "Grandma!" he called, opening the picket gate with a creak. Grandma Bunny poked her head out from the kitchen window. She had flour on her cheeks and a smile as wide as a watermelon slice. "Milo, my jam helper, just in time. I've picked the last of the raspberries." Inside, the kitchen looked like a berry parade. Bowls of red raspberries, golden apricots, and purple plums sat on the counter. The jam jars were neatly lined up, each with a gingham lid waiting to be filled. "Can I stir?" Milo asked eagerly. "With your big wooden spoon," Grandma said, handing him the one with the strawberry handle. As they stirred and tasted and giggled, Milo noticed a soft buzzing sound by the open window. Bzz, bzz. A bee. Then 2 bees. Then 6. "Grandma," whispered Milo, "we've got company." Grandma peeked. "Oh dear, I forgot to close the window. The bees must have smelled our raspberry jam." Milo's eyes widened as more bees hovered around the pot. They weren't mean or scary, just busy zooming in neat little loops. "Don't worry," Grandma said gently. "Bees are our garden friends, but too many will turn our kitchen into a buzzing beehive." They tried fanning the bees with dish towels. Milo waved a cookie tray like a shield. "Shoo, bees, shoo!" he said. But the bees weren't interested in leaving. They were only interested in the shiny, sweet-smelling pot of jam. Suddenly, Grandma had an idea. "Let's take the jam outside," she said. "Let the bees have a tiny taste on a saucer near the sunflowers. Maybe they'll follow it." Milo carefully spooned a dollop onto a saucer and carried it outside like a treasure. Grandma placed it near the tallest sunflower in the garden, and just like magic, the bees followed. "Buzz!" they cheered, circling the saucer like dancers. Milo laughed. "They really love raspberry jam." Grandma winked. "Everyone does." As the bees happily sipped, Milo and Grandma returned inside to finish filling the jars. But as they worked, Milo had a curious thought tickling his whiskers. "Grandma, where do bees live? Do they have jam too?" Grandma smiled thoughtfully. "They live in hives, and they make honey, which is their special kind of jam." Milo's ears twitched with excitement. "Do you think we could visit? Maybe say thank you?" Grandma chuckled. Maybe we could, but we'd need a very good plan. And some jam." The next morning, the sun peeked over Clover Hill, painting the garden in golden light. Milo wore a floppy yellow hat and carried a basket lined with soft cloth. Inside it sat 3 tiny jars of raspberry jam, each tied with a ribbon and a handwritten label that read, "Thank you, bees." He bounced into the kitchen where Grandma was sipping chamomile tea. "Grandma, I'm ready. Let's visit the bees and give them their jam." Grandma Bunny chuckled. "Well, someone's bright and early. Are you sure the bees want jam instead of honey?" Milo's nose wiggled. "I think they deserve a treat, and maybe we'll learn how they make their honey." Grandma packed a few oat biscuits and wrapped 2 scones in a napkin. "Then let's bring snacks for visitors and polite guests." Together, they followed the path past the garden, through the rows of tall daisies, and down to the edge of the meadow where the buzzing grew louder. Milo paused, ears twitching. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. A soft buzz echoed between the clover patches. "Follow the hum," Grandma said gently. "Bees always hum when they're happy." Soon they spotted a cozy wooden hive perched beneath an old apple tree. Bees zoomed in and out like tiny airplanes, each landing with little yellow puffs of pollen stuck to their legs. "Wow, Milo breathed. It's like an airport for bees. Just then, a plump bumblebee with fuzzy stripes floated toward them. She had gentle eyes and teeny, shiny wings that shimmered in the sunlight. "Hello there," Grandma said warmly. "We're here to say thank you for being sweet neighbors." Milo held up the basket. "We made jam for you." The bumblebee did a curious loop in the air, then landed gently on Grandma's shoulder. "I'm Queen Bella, and you've brought jam for us." "Yes," Milo grinned. "You visited our kitchen yesterday, and we thought you might like your own taste." Queen Bella clapped her tiny feet. "How thoughtful. We don't usually eat jam, but we're always curious about new sweet things." She buzzed a signal, and several bees gathered. They lined up neatly, wings twinkling in the sun. Grandma opened one jar and dipped the edge of a biscuit into the jam. She held it out gently. The bees took teeny tastes, their antennae wiggling. "Delightful," said one. "Very bright and sunny," said another. Queen Bella nodded. "This jam is a burst of summer. You've made a fine gift, little bunny." Milo beamed. "Thank you. Could we, maybe, see your honey-making room?" There was a pause. The bees glanced at each other. "That's quite a special request. Most creatures don't get to see inside our hive." Milo's ears drooped a little. "Oh, I understand. But," Queen Bella continued, "you brought us a gift from the heart, and kind hearts are welcome here." She turned and buzzed toward the hive. "Follow me." Milo bounced in excitement. Grandma carefully picked up the basket and followed. Inside the hive, the air smelled sweet like warm flowers in sunshine. It was dim but cozy, with walls made of golden hexagons. Bees moved around smoothly, placing pollen, fanning their wings, and tending to baby bees in tiny waxy cradles. Milo gasped. "It's like a golden castle." Queen Bella pointed to a wide honeycomb shelf where a group of bees were gently mixing nectar. "We gather nectar from flowers, then bring it here. It's stored and stirred, then fanned with our wings until it turns into thick golden honey." Milo watched, eyes wide as saucers. A bee gently handed him a tiny honey straw made from a flower stem. Milo took a careful sip. It's like jam made from the sunshine itself." Queen Bella smiled. "We call it liquid gold." Just then, a young bee fluttered over. "Your jam gave me an idea. What if we make a blend? Raspberry and honey." The bees buzzed in agreement. "A jam honey swirl." Queen Bella turned to Milo. "Would you help us make a new treat together?" Milo looked at Grandma. She nodded. "Yes, please," he said. And with that, the hive lit up with happy buzzing as the bees and bunnies began planning a sweet little surprise for the whole garden. The hive was busy as a birthday bakery. Bees zipped and zoomed with pollen baskets, whispering to one another as they worked on something very special, something no bee or bunny had ever made before. "Jam honey swirl," Milo said, tasting the words like candy on his tongue. "It sounds like a dessert dance." Queen Bella smiled warmly. "A little honey, a little jam, a lot of love, and maybe a dash of flower sparkle." Milo's nose twitched. "What's flower sparkle?" "It's what we call the extra special nectar from the shiniest blooms," said a young bee named Poppy, who wore a tiny sunflower petal tied around her waist like an apron. "It gives our honey its glow." Grandma Bunny gently placed one of her tiny jam jars on a warm wax table. "Well, I brought enough raspberry jam to try 3 swirls." Queen Bella nodded. "Let's begin." The bees began to hum in harmony, a soft working tune that made the honeycomb walls gently vibrate. Poppy dipped a wooden stir stick into the honey and twirled it into the jam jar. Round and round, slow as a sleepy cloud. The red jam and golden honey swirled together like a sunset. Milo watched in awe. "It's so pretty. Can I stir one?" "Of course," Queen Bella said, "but gently, like a breeze brushing petals." Milo took the second jar. He dipped the stick and slowly moved it in circles. Red ribbons folded into gold. It smelled like berries in the sunshine. "Ta-da!" he whispered. "Perfect swirl," said Poppy, buzzing excitedly. Grandma stirred the third jar. Now we have 3, just right for a garden tasting. The bees buzzed in agreement. A tasting! A garden party! I'll bring the scones, said Grandma. And I'll carry the jam, said Milo. Wait! Poppy shouted suddenly. We should make it extra special. What if we invite everyone? The butterflies, the squirrels, even the ladybugs. Queen Bella clapped her tiny feet. Yes, let's share it with the whole meadow. Tomorrow at noon, under the apple tree. Milo's eyes sparkled. A honey jam picnic! Grandma chuckled. We'd better get baking. Back at the cottage, Milo and Grandma spent the rest of the day making more jam. Strawberry, raspberry, plum, and one with peach slices that made Milo's whiskers wiggle with joy. They baked soft oat biscuits and tiny scones and even cut star shapes out of shortbread cookies. Do you think the bees like cookies? Milo asked, licking a bit of dough off his paw. Not for eating, but they do like sweet shapes. The next morning, the sun stretched over the meadow like a big golden hug. Milo wore his berry patch overalls again, and Grandma tied a gingham cloth over a big picnic basket. Inside were their 3 swirl jars, plus tiny plates and napkins made from folded leaves and flower petals. As they reached the apple tree, they gasped. "Oh, my fluff," Milo whispered. The whole meadow had gathered. Butterflies fluttered in pairs. A line of ladybugs marched across a dandelion leaf. Chipmunks peeked from under mushrooms. Even a shy fox sat quietly near the stream. Poppy waved. Over here! The bees had decorated the picnic spot with daisy garlands and honeycomb-shaped lanterns that caught the light and shimmered. It's beautiful, Grandma said. Queen Bella floated forward. Welcome, friends. Today we taste something new. Thanks to Milo and Grandma Bunny, we've blended bee honey and bunny jam. The crowd cheered, or buzzed, or chirped, or clapped tiny paws. Milo held out the first swirl jar. A squirrel took a tiny spoonful and squeaked in delight. It's like a sunberry hug! A butterfly dipped a wingtip. Sweet, but not too sticky. Perfect! Even the grumpy hedgehog, who usually only ate beetles, gave a sniff. Not bad at all. Queen Bella smiled. It's a hit! Milo looked up at the hive. Maybe we could make this a tradition. Oh, once-a-year honey jam day? Grandma smiled proudly. Why not start now? The bees and the bunnies laughed and nodded, and as the sun shone down on raspberry smiles and honey hugs, Milo knew something sweet had just begun. Not just a new recipe, but a new friendship, too. The very next morning, the sun peeked shyly from behind the clouds as the meadow slowly woke up. Birds chirped cheerful tunes, and bees buzzed busily around the early bloomers. Inside Grandma Bunny's cozy kitchen, the counter was covered in little swirl jars, more than a dozen, each labeled with a tiny flower sticker and a name tag. This one's for Miss Duck, Milo said, carefully pressing a daisy sticker on the lid. And this, Grandma said, tying a ribbon, goes to the mole family near the old oak log. The kitchen smelled of raspberries, plums, and warm honey. It was delivery day. With help from Queen Bella and the meadow bees, the meadow residents had placed special requests for their very own jar of jam honey swirl. Some wanted more honey than jam, others wanted extra berry bits. A few asked for a mix with a surprise swirl of apricot. We'll need a delivery plan, Milo said, brushing flour off his nose. One that covers the meadow in loops and circles, like the bees fly. Grandma unfolded a soft cloth map on the table. It showed the garden, the stream, the big sunflower patch, and the edge of Clover Hill. If we start here, she said, pointing to the cottage, we can loop past the mole family, then the duck pond, then the fox's den. And we'll end at the hive, Milo clapped, to give Queen Bella her royal swirl. Outside, the delivery wagon was ready. It was a small wooden cart with red wheels and a patchwork blanket lining the inside. Milo tucked the jars in one by one, and Grandma tied the top with a bow to keep everything cozy. Bzzz! A few bees zipped up to meet them. "Good morning," Poppy buzzed. She wore her petal apron again, and this time had a tiny satchel slung across her back. "Ready to guide you," said another bee. "We'll help you find the way and make sure none of the jars tip over." "Team Swirl is on the job," Milo declared. Off they went, wheels squeaking gently as the cart rolled over soft dirt paths and grassy knolls. Their first stop, the mole family's burrow. The mole twins popped up from their tunnel, blinking in the daylight. "Do we smell raspberries?" Milo handed them their special jar, half honey, half plum jam. "Careful, it's sweet and swirly." The moles squeaked happily and disappeared back into their burrow, hugging the jar between them. Next was the duck pond. Miss Duck was paddling near the edge wearing a bonnet covered in tiny violets. "Oh, my jam has arrived," she quacked, delighted. "I've been dreaming of this all night." Milo giggled as he passed her the jar. "Yours has a little extra honey drizzle." She dipped her beak in and fluttered her wings. "Delicious!" The bees led the way along the edge of the stream, past bending reeds and croaking frogs. Then came the fox's den. Milo hesitated. The fox was quiet and mysterious. He didn't talk much, and his eyes were always half closed, like he was thinking very deep thoughts. But when Milo knocked gently at the door made of moss and bark, the fox peeked out. "Oh," he said softly, "you came." Milo nodded and handed over the jar with a swirl of blackberry and golden honey. The fox sniffed it. "My favorite kind," he murmured. "Glad you like it," Milo smiled. The fox nodded once and slowly closed the door. "That was kind," Grandma whispered. Milo whispered back, "I think he smiled a little." The journey continued through the tall grass where ladybugs played leapfrog on dandelion leaves. They cheered and clapped as Milo handed out tiny sampler jars. Near the bluebell patch, a sleepy owl accepted a jar and promised to try it after his nap. And finally, they reached the hive. Queen Bella was awaiting on a petal-covered platform wearing a crown made of thistle fluff and golden pollen. "For your majesty," Milo said, bowing playfully as he held up the last and fanciest jar. This one was special, a triple swirl of raspberry, apricot, and honey, with a tiny edible flower floating in the middle. Queen Bella took a taste. Her wings fluttered in delight. Heavenly! A masterpiece of meadow flavor. The bees cheered. The cart was empty, and Milo's heart was full. Grandma wiped her paws. "We did it, little helper." Milo grinned. "Now we just need one more thing." "A celebration?" Queen Bella guessed. "A nap," Milo said with a yawn. Everyone laughed. 2 days after delivery day, a shiny sign was posted on a tree near the old garden gate. It read, "Swirly Meadow Festival! Everyone welcome! Come taste honey jam swirls. Dance under the blossoms. Bring your blanket and your biggest smile." Milo read the sign 3 times, just to be sure it was real. "A festival for jam?" he whispered, bouncing on his toes. "That's the best idea ever!" Queen Bella had thought of everything. The bees would hang honeycomb lanterns between the trees. The butterflies would perform a flutter dance. Even the beetles agreed to provide the rhythm with their tap, tap, tap feet. And Milo? He was in charge of the tasting table. "We'll need a swirl stand," he told Grandma as they set to work. "One with trays, a ribbon sign, and spoons made from sticks." Grandma smiled. "And I'll bake one more batch of scones, just in case someone's extra hungry." By afternoon, the meadow glowed with excitement. A wide cloth was spread under the apple tree, filled with leaf plates, flower cup spoons, and colorful jars lined in rows. Each swirl had a tiny tag: Bee Delight, Peachy Buzz, Apricot Swizzle, Plum Drop Pop, and a very new flavor Milo called Sunshine Raspberry Cloud. Animals began to arrive, giggling and chattering. Some wore fancy hats, some had ribbons. Even the frogs wore bow ties made of pondweed. "Welcome," Milo called as he handed out petal napkins. "Pick a swirl, any swirl." The butterflies began their flutter dance, twirling like falling leaves through the air. The chipmunks drummed their tiny feet. The ladybugs formed a conga line across a log. Grandma poured berry fizz into carved acorn cups. Queen Bella buzzed from group to group, giving hugs and tiny high fives with her fuzzy legs. Milo stood proudly behind the swirl table. "Would you like to try Plum Drop Pop?" he asked a bashful hedgehog. The hedgehog took a tiny taste and let out a dreamy sigh. "It tastes like bedtime stories." "Sunshine Raspberry Cloud," Milo offered to a dancing squirrel. Said the squirrel. "It's like a picnic in the sky." Milo smiled so wide his cheeks hurt. But then he spotted something. Off near the tall grass, someone stood quietly by a rock. It was the shy fox again, watching the party but not joining in. Milo walked over slowly. "Hi," he said softly. The fox blinked. "Hello." "I saved a spoonful of blackberry bee burst. It's the very last one. Want to try it?" The fox hesitated, then nodded. He took the spoon and tasted. After a long moment, the corners of his mouth curled into the smallest, most warmest smile. "It's perfect," the fox said. Milo beamed. "Want to come sit with us?" The fox nodded again, and together they walked back to the party, just as the bees began their special dance, swirling in loops and spirals through the sunlight, like a swirl in a jar come to life. As the day turned to dusk, the lanterns lit up like stars between the branches. The festival buzzed and hummed with joy. And in the center of it all sat Milo, sticky with jam, full of biscuits, tired but so very happy. Grandma leaned close and whispered, "Look what your little swirl started." Milo yawned and nodded. Jam and bees really do bring everyone together. As the stars twinkled softly above Clover Hill, the swirly meadow festival began to wind down. The lanterns glowed like sleepy fireflies, and soft lullabies hummed from the bees as they packed up their instruments made of hollow reeds and dewdrop chimes. Milo sat on a quilted patchwork blanket beside Grandma Bunny, his eyes half closed and his belly very full. A little jam smeared his cheek, and a curl of clover was stuck behind one ear. "That was the best day ever," he murmured. Grandma chuckled. "It certainly was one to remember. You've made a lot of hearts feel sweet today, little one." Milo yawned and looked out at the meadow. Queen Bella buzzed over and gently landed on the edge of the blanket. She looked tired but happy, with pollen sparkles still clinging to her fuzzy crown. "You did a wonderful thing, Milo," she said softly. "Not just the jam, not just the swirl, but the way you shared. You made something new and invited everyone in." Milo blushed a little and rubbed his ear. I didn't know jam and honey could do all that." Queen Bella smiled. "It's not just what's in the jar, it's the heart behind it." Poppy the bee zoomed over and plopped next to Queen Bella, her petal apron dusted with flour and a trail of cookie crumbs behind her. "We should make this a real holiday," she buzzed. "Every year, the Swirly Meadow Festival." Milo's ears perked up. "With more flavors and more guests." Maybe even a swirl competition. And we could name a new swirl after someone each year, Grandma added. The Milo mix could be this year's favorite. The Milo mix, Queen Bella declared. Raspberry, honey, and a hint of Grandma's secret vanilla drop. Poppy clapped her little bee feet. Let's write it down in the honeycomb history book. Wait, Milo said, suddenly thoughtful. Should we write down all the swirl recipes so others can make them too? Queen Bella nodded seriously. That's a very wise idea. Grandma smiled proudly. Then tomorrow we'll start a special recipe book. One that holds more than just cooking instructions. It'll hold memories. The bees buzzed in agreement. Some gathered leftover petals and folded them into little notebooks. Others dipped their feet into ink made of crushed berries and began drawing swirls and measuring spoonfuls with exact buzzes and flutters. As the meadow grew quiet, the animals slowly drifted off, curling up on soft moss, under leaves, or in the crooks of tree roots. A sleepy chorus of snores and chirps filled the air. Milo lay down on the blanket, using a folded napkin as a pillow. Queen Bella rested near his paw, and Poppy hummed a lullaby as she settled into a curled-up leaf. The stars twinkled above, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of honey and raspberry across the meadow. Milo's eyes fluttered closed, but just before sleep fully arrived, he whispered, "Grandma!" "Yes, dear? Do you think bees dream?" Grandma chuckled softly. "Oh, I think they do. Of fields full of flowers and jam jars with their names on them." Milo smiled. "Good. I hope I dream of that too." And he did. That night, Milo dreamed of a meadow where jam jars grew on trees and bees wore bow ties, where everyone shared spoons and sang songs about sweetness, where kindness spread like jam on warm toast. In the morning, when the first golden ray of sun peeked over Clover Hill, the bees would wake up humming, Grandma would start her tea, and Milo would stretch with a smile, ready to stir up a brand new day of magic, made from jam and honey and a whole lot of heart.